Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where tonight we're going to get a chance to share our love of math, and hopefully that will help you engage your students in their love of math. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI Technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. Tonight, I'm really lucky to be joined by our two panelists, Ruth Casey and Margaret Bambrick. Ruth lives in Kentucky, where she taught math in grades 8 through 12 for 29 years. A T-Cube national instructor, textbook author, and former member of the NCTM Board of Directors, Ruth specializes in grades 7 through 12 math, instructional technology, and professional development for mathematics teachers. During the 2018-19 school year, Ruth will provide training and classroom support as she continues her work with TI as a T-Cubed systemic coach. Ruth, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody.
And Margaret lives in Florida, where she has served as a curriculum leader and teacher of high school math in Volusia County schools for over 30 years. She's been involved with the T-Cube network since the early 90s, and she's used the TID4 family and the TI Inspire CAS and Navigator systems in her classroom and enjoys helping teachers find the best tools to use in their classroom to enhance the appreciation and understanding of mathematics. Margaret, we're lucky to have you with us tonight. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here.
We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free anytime to send any questions to Ruth or Margaret using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen. We'll also be using the chat window to send general messages. As a reminder, the session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. We hope you don't have any audio issues tonight, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate from the very top of the WebEx menu and choose Audio Broadcast. At this point, Margaret is going to discuss our agenda.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here and joined us tonight. We're going to start out with a short little overview regarding the two software programs that work with our TI-84 family, one being the TI SmartView for emulator and instructional software, and the second one being TI Connect, which allows you to connect your handheld and so much more to increase communication and engagement in your classroom. Tonight in our presentations and interaction, we're hoping to explore middle grades and high school math concepts that you have worked with in your classrooms related to images and transformations and graphs of functions as well. We're going to show you some techniques for storing data, graphs, functions, and more to optimize your class time. We know how important that is. Our goal is that you can see the TI-84 as a way to leverage your units to enhance classroom discussions. Online resources that you'll visit or see where the software is located, apps for the 84 family, classroom activities, and additional professional development with webinars and tutorials.
Thanks so much, Margaret. And Ruth is going to discuss our expected outcomes.
Okay, as we progress through the evening tonight, we're going to look some more at TI Connect CE connectivity software for your classroom. It's a free software that lets your computer communicate with your handhelds, and that's for the 84 family. We're going to look at the instructional software, TI SmartView CE Emulator. We're going to use lists to graph and transform images, explore function mode and polar mode of our TI-84 family. Maybe look at programs. If we have time, we'll look at some grouped files, or at least maybe touch on how to group files. Graph databases will certainly be used tonight. And we'll talk about how each of these kinds of things can be used to store data and graphical information. We're going to try and highlight using TI Connect CE as a means of increasing classroom discussion and sharing student work. it'd be great if we had classrooms with us tonight. Margaret and I have some extra calculators plugged in, so we're going to try to share our screens with you and talk about some ways um, to share work and promote discourse, and also maybe hear from you in the chat. And Mike will tell us some more about online resources.
Thanks so much, Ruth. Ruth, at this point, you have control. Feel free to share your screen.
All right. Thanks so much. First thing I want to look at is the TI-84 SmartView CE. It's for the 84 family. This is instructional software that I'm going to use in my classroom with my students to illustrate, to demonstrate, to as I work through a lesson. You've probably seen it in other webinars, maybe even last week's webinar. So we're going to be using it throughout on our desktops as we move through the activities. Just wanted you to know that this is what the piece is we're using. It's got 2 workspaces over here. If I click on the magnifying glass, it shows the contents of the calculator. That's important if I want to put files on it. And there are files for tonight. So it's great if I put those files on. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly show you how to do that. Here's my folder. Here are some files that can go on my 84 CE SmartView software. There's a graph database, another graph database, and 2 programs. So I'm just going to find that folder on my computer where I have the files. What did I call it and where did I put it? That's usually my challenge. Okay, so those are the 4 files that Margaret and I are going to be using tonight. They're also made available to you with the materials. And I'm just going to slide them over here. And now it's resting on the contents of my SmartView CE software. And it says, well, what do you want to do with these? I'm just going to click, it's already clicked, replace existing content. If I know that I already had something in Graph Database 7 and 8. And then I have the 2 programs we're going to be looking at tonight. So I'm going to click on Send. And it will place those into the SmartView memory. And when I go back to Emulator workspace here, a couple of things I could do is look at Program. Oh, there's one of them, Heart. That wasn't it. Let's see, where is it? Heart 1. There was another one, H Heart. Not sure where that is. I might have to try that again. Let me see if my graph databases went. And so on the home screen, I would execute. Margaret's going to go through the program stuff again, so I won't take up my time with that. Graph database accessed by second program in the draw menu. Move over to STO for store. I want to recall a graph database. I think I moved over 7 and 8, so I just type 7, press enter. It's not showing me anything. It's just saying it's done. So a graph database will store information on my calculator about what graphing mode it was in. Oh, it looks like this was in polar mode, and it will store information in the graph database about what window is used. There's a polar window with some settings there, and it will put some equations in your y equals. All right, so we had a couple of opportunities just looking at file transfer, how to get it on my emulator software, TI SmartView. That's the instructional piece. Okay, that's getting it on my computer for classroom instruction demonstration purposes. The other software I want to look at is the connectivity software, TI Connect CE. This is not the emulator software. This isn't where I would demonstrate the how-to of calculator or illustrate some math concepts. This is when I want to connect from my computer to a calculator or from a calculator to a computer. Okay, so I have to have files on my computer in order to put them onto calculators. Right now it says connected calculators. It's not showing up anything. So let me connect some calculators. So these are connected to my computer via USB cable that comes with the 84. So they pop up. I see that the first calculator that I turned on there was a TI 84 Plus Silver Edition, the good old black and white standard, tells me the operating system. And I also have 2 of the CEs plugged in, also tells me the operating system. I can click on each of those. It will show me the contents on each of the calculators. I tend to think of a calculator connected to my computer sort of as a flash drive, removable storage. Plug it in via the USB and see what's on it or put something on it. While I'm here, I can click on 84 Plus Silver Edition, look at the contents, or I can move up to where it says Screen Capture. This is a great way to get some information. Have your students, if they're working on things together, have them plug in your computer via USB and just snap the camera, get a picture of something. There's what's on my 84 Plus Silver Edition. Okay, and we'll revisit screen captures throughout the lesson tonight. If I want to get files from computer to the calculators, it's kind of the same way that I got it into my emulator software. But remember, TI Connect is the communication software. It's the free software that allows us to take things from computer to 84 and from 84 back to computer. I still have these same files that I want to use. I'll move them in 2 parts. I'll move the graph databases first. And so I'm going to just slide them over. Think flash drive, removable storage. Where is it? Where do you want to put it? So I'm going to move it over here. As I move, I see copy is an option. I'll click all connected calculators, and I will see if I have selected files that will actually go on the different models of 84 that I have. All right, Graph Database 7, Graph Database 8. It's receiving it, sending it to each of those. Then I will click the program. Margaret's going to be doing transformations with an image, so I'll click on both of those programs. I'll slide them over to here. So I'm going from where they are on my computer to the calculators that are connected. I'll click all connected calculators. Now, I suspect that these 2 programs were written for the color calculators, so they might not go to the black and white, but it'll tell me that. If I'm trying to send to a calculator that has different functionality, it'll let me know. Okay, so that popped up. It tells me it wouldn't go on my black and white, so I must be using some things that use features of the 84 CE, such as color for the stat plot, or maybe the window settings are different because the screen of the 84 Plus Silver Edition didn't have as many pixels as the CE. So that's a brief look at using TI Connect just to communicate from calculator to computer, computer to calculator. As we work through our activities together, we'll be using TI Connect to get work from student calculators, so we can talk about it. What did you do? How did you move that function? What transformation did you do? Or what polar graph did you explore and come up with, and share your work and talk about it? So just engagement in the classroom and samples of student work. All righty, I think that's all I'm doing for right now. So let's see if we can have Margaret be in charge here.
All right. Thanks, Ruth. Looks like you need to pass it. There we go. Okay, so the software that I've opened up, as Ruth mentioned, is the TI Smart View, which allows me to show an emulator to my students. And we're going to start with the transformations in the coordinate plane. So we're going to talk about students coming up with pictures, and we're going to use a few of the menus first. I want to kind of glance at. I believe what I did was I did a second mem just to reset my defaults is all. And so that was second and then the plus sign above there, and I'm going to just do reset my defaults. And just that allows me to kind of start back with my mode and everything highlighted on the left. And the menus that I'm going to be using predominantly are involved as in the stat plot, second y equals, and so I don't have any plots on at the time. I'm also going to be using my stat editor, so if I hit stat and I go into editor, I have some lists. I'm going to go ahead and clear out my lists. So I'm going to go to the top on the name of the list and press clear. There is a way as well that you can go and clear your list out all at one time if you want. And so in my viewing window, I'm going to predominantly be dealing with lists 1 through 6 as I go through and work on transformations in the coordinate plane. And so I found that it is helpful when I start, if I'm starting with a lower level, a lower grade level, I might start with simple geometric figures at first. But when I'm dealing with older students, they get tuned in. And of course, for the love of mathematics, we have to work with a heart tonight. So the first thing I did to create my list was I plotted a heart on a piece of graph paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a program so that we can make things a little bit easier here. And the program we're going to look at first is Heart. And I'm going to go over to Edit so that I can actually view the program. And then I can go down to Heart. And so I have an idea of what this program does. And so the name of my program is Heart. And I've turned off the functions to begin with and turned off all the plots in case there were any stat plots on to begin with. In addition, I have set a window. The particular window I used was one that you would see all 4 quadrants since we're going to be transforming a bit. And then my data is down here towards the bottom, and I'm storing my data in list 1, my x coordinate, and my y coordinate in list 2. And if you notice, the first ordered pair, if you think about it that way, is 6, 2. The x value is 6, the y value is 2. And my last ordered pair is also 6, 2, because I'm going to have the plot. And I need to connect the line plot. As you'll see, the way the plot's set up, it's set up as an XY line. And the data is going to go into lists 1 and 2. And when Ruth was talking about it wouldn't transfer to the silver, it's because here I've got color involved as well as my window might be slightly different. So I'm going to go ahead and quit and go home. And by that I mean I'm going to go second, quit, and go to my home screen. And now I'm going to actually go to my program and I'm going to execute it. It allows you to actually execute now from the editor menu as well. So the way that you choose the program to execute it so that I can get my list data in there without having to type it is paste it on the home screen when I select it and then press enter. And the way it's set up is it's set up to put the data as I showed you before, but now the data is in lists 1 and 2. It also is set to turn on plot 1. And when I'm in plot 1, it sets it up the way I have it set up here. The particular marking, I typically use the larger one, but if you want it to look a little nicer later, you can change that. And of course, the CE allows me to also change the color. But of course, we're going with Valentine red tonight, at least on this one, because this is the original. In addition, if you notice, there's the window that I had set, so it showed my graph immediately because of my command towards the end of the program. So when I get the students, we also, I'm doing the heart because it's Valentine's Day, but we've done a lot of different types of figures. Some of the artsy students like to create masterpieces, and then it requires maybe more points. The heart, one of the nice things about the heart, in the picture, if you notice, and if you're going to be doing transformations in the coordinate plane, often it's good to turn on your grid. So to do that, I'm going to go to Second, Format, and if you notice, I'm going to go down and turn my grid line on. You can do grid dot or grid line. I'm going to turn it on because that will help me a little bit if I'm trying to count some things. And it might be a little bit, you can decide. I like to kind of leave my original heart there boldly. And the first thing we talk about with the students is, well, what do I have to do to move this heart to the left, let's say? And if we're trying to get the heart moved to the left so many units, we talk about, well, which coordinate is that going to change? And maybe at the very beginning, they have to actually go, and let's say we're going to move it over 3 units to start with, just a translation of 3 units. So they might have to go through and think about which coordinate is this going to change, or is it going to change both? And if we're just translating it 3 units to the left, it's only going to change the x-coordinate. So they might have to actually write that down in a list, but if they've got a complicated or more complicated drawing with more points identified, of course that's time consuming and they don't want to take all that time. So they go into their stat editor and they realize then that they can generalize what they're doing by subtracting 3 units from all the original x coordinates. And the y coordinates will stay the same in that problem. So if I get on top of the name of L3 and I press enter, I can tell it to take L1, all of the values in L1, and subtract 3, because I was going to translate it 3 units. Okay? So I'll press enter, and now I want to turn on a new stat plot. I don't need a new Y list because it's the same Y list. So I'll go into plot 2 and we'll turn it on. And it's already connected line plot selected there. X is what's going to change. I'm going to use L3. And so we'll leave it black for right now. We'll press enter. It looks like everything else is set up okay. To see a different symbol, we'll just use the plus symbol instead of the square there. So, and I hit graph, and then I see there's the heart translated 3 units to the left. So that's one thing talking about and letting them generalize what they're doing, and sometimes it's helpful to actually write it at the top of the list. One thing, too, is they might want to be sure and record on a piece of paper what they're storing in each list, if you can get your kids to write. All right, and so let's think about then, we'll wait on getting the heart translated left and down in a minute. Let's go ahead and do a different transformation. Let's do a reflection in the x-axis. So we think about what's going to change for that reflection. And are our x values going to remain the same? Well, yes, if we're reflecting it into the x-axis. The x values will stay the same, but this time the y will change. And what will happen is the y will multiply all the y coordinates by a -1. So we'll go back into our window and, whoops, I'm sorry, go back into Stat and in my editor. And I'm going to go ahead to the top of L4 and I'm going to press Enter. And this time I'm going to multiply -1 times my Y list is in list 2. So second L2 and press Enter. And now I need to set up a graph of L1 and L4. So I'll go back here and I'll run to plot 3. We'll just go ahead and turn it on. And we will change the Y list to L4. You can go with a different ordered pair there. Okay. And so there you have your reflection. Now, if you notice, the unit will only allow us to turn on 3 plots at a time. So we'll kind of talk about something with that a little bit later. I'm going to hold off on that for a few minutes. So let's take a look at transforming. We'll do a translation on the original heart. So I'm going to go back and look at the original heart, which is in red, and I'm going to translate it to the left and down. And I'm going to translate it to the left 6 units. Before I do that, I wanted to show you one other thing you could do, especially not every particular, if the student's choosing their own objects, not every object is going to have an axis of symmetry. But of course, the heart has one. And so we can actually show that in this particular situation. If you remember, Ruth earlier visited the Draw menu, so I'm going to go to Second, Draw, which is above the Program key. And that's where I see I have a vertical line possible to draw in. And if you notice, I have a blinking cursor in the middle, so I can move it over. Whoops, except I went too far. And that's supposed to be at 6 when I press Enter. Now what I can do, because you notice it's not exactly at 6, I can go back and I'm going to actually clear that. And I can go to my home screen and access the command. And I can actually have it draw it right at 6. Since when I was moving, it wasn't there. So that you do see the axis of symmetry there. And since it does have an axis of symmetry, we can even have a shorter way to put in our data, have a shorter list of data. I believe this particular data list was around 26, if I recall. I don't know, 25, maybe 25 points, I can't recall. But at any rate, let me go ahead and take a look at the particular transformations we've done so far. All create congruent hearts. But of course, if we get into another type of transformation, we can get a similar heart, but it would not be congruent. So first, I'm going to take my original heart, and I'm actually going to clear my list 3 and 4, so I don't get confused about where I am. And I'm going to translate list 1 by taking, let's see, second L1, and I'm going to subtract 6, so that's going to move it so that the y-axis is the axis of symmetry. And I could even ask my students that question to do. If we could be more interactive, if this wasn't such a large group, we could do that. But at any rate, and my list 4, I'm going to go ahead and go down 7 units here. So I'm going to change that one to L2 minus 7. And so I need to, I've got my second plot. I will go ahead, it's already on, it's just not showing the correct list. So I want it to be list 3 and list 4. What's nice about using these list names, if you notice, above the 1 through 6 keys, that's where I'm getting those L1 through L6 names, so it's easier to get there quickly. All right? All right, so that's the graph I wanted. And I'm going to go ahead and do a dilation of this particular heart. So I'm going to go through and change lists 5 and 6. And if I want to do a dilation of the heart that is now in list 3 and 4, if I wanted to make it larger, I'll multiply by, let's just go with 2. So we'll say 2 times list 3 and two times list 4. And I will go back in, and I'm actually going to change plot. I think I'm going to change plot 1 to be list 5. Whoops. Sorry. 5 and 6. Okay. So there we have a similar heart. And then we will do with the green, which was in list 1 and 4. We will go and I think I will just change list 1 and we're going to change that one to list 1 and 2. Of course, I'm going to have to get the data first, change the data. So I will do that quickly. Whoops. Maybe. There we go. And now I'll go into my stat, edit, and list 1, my original data. I went too far. Notice it wraps around. So I will clear list 1, and I will multiply 0.5 times list 3. Uh-oh, I didn't finish. I was in the wrong place. That's a good thing to see because that happens to me a lot. Happens to students a lot. You have to be on top of the name of the list when you type it in. So enter, there we go, 0.5 times, and you can also use a fraction here that just puts fractions in your window here. Second L3, and then, and I actually, let's see, we'll go ahead and clear, okay, and then I can do 0.5 times second L4. And I think I already set it up, so there we go. one of the things, the reason I put the other program in there, because just as students, if there is symmetry in their figure, they want to try to save steps. And so getting them to think about it, where a heart is a symmetric figure, the second program I'm actually going to run, which is only going to be half a heart. And I've had students do this, see this, the piece of heart there, and they say, oh, okay, well, that's going to be easy. I'm just going to do a reflection. So they'll say, okay, I need to reflect the X. So they'll go and create a new list. So what this has done is just populated the single half the heart. So these other lists we can go out and clear. I'm just going to do 2 of them actually because of time. And so they say, okay, so list 3 then, I just need to take my x's and multiply by 1, or negative 1 rather. So negative 1 times second L1. And they look at turning on a second stat plot of second L3, whoops, sorry. Second stat plot of L3 for the X, turn it on, and L2 for the Y, and we'll put it in, we'll make it another color. Let's make it blue. Oh, we'll make it brown. Here we go. All right. And then the graph, and they're like, oh, what happened? So they didn't think about, they weren't reflecting it over, this isn't over the y-axis. This is over the axis of symmetry, or this is over the y-axis, not over the axis of symmetry. So they have to account by that by doing their transformation. So in the reality, then they have to see, okay, so for that list, instead of just negative 1, they needed to do and think about negative 1 times second L1, and then they have to subtract 12 to move it back over. And then hopefully, uh-oh, I did the wrong direction. Okay. Sorry, we should have added 12. I don't know why. Okay, here we go. Enter. Okay. So, let me do it first. Okay. Second, or negative 1 times second L1, and then it was, sorry, plus, we're moving to the right. That's what I should have done. There we go. Now, there we go. So that was why I kind of wanted to show you that information. One other thing that I was just going to show you quickly, just to say, if you notice down at the bottom, that was kind of a spider that somebody came up with at Halloween time. So with that, I'm going to show you just, whoops. This would give an opportunity for students to share what they've done and to talk about the different transformations and have them verbalize their transformations. So if I flip to just TI Connect real quick, I have my calculator hooked up, and it could be a student calculator. This is in TI Connect now, and I'm going to click on and show you what's on my handheld. And so this would be a student in the class who has taken a spider that they created, and they have done a variety of transformations. And the reason you might see the word pick in the bottom is because since I can only do 3 stat plots at a time, I can save some of those transformations as a picture in the same place Ruth was saving the database. All right, I know I've gone a little bit over, Ruth, so I'm going to let you talk a little bit now about your topic with functions.
Thanks, Margaret. We're going to continue with some of the things that Margaret did, and we're also going to look at some other types of graphing. Here I have my SmartView CE for the 84 plus family. So I wanted to be sure and show you the PDFs that are part of the materials for tonight. Okay, so just the description there at the top, and then some screenshots of what we're doing. So when you revisit this, if you have time, or share it with a colleague who didn't get to see our program tonight, that's what the two PDFs have in it. Just a description and some screenshots. Here's the little bit about polar graphing that we might do. I will say that on both of these PDFs, we use the CE for the screenshots because, you know, it's a PDF. We can get some nice color on there. So that's what the PDF documents look like that accompany this. And there we see the picture of a spider that Margaret was talking about earlier. Okay, so wanted to do a little bit with other types of graphing. Okay, notice when I press mode, I have function mode, parametric mode, polar mode, and sequence mode. So I want to use parametric and polar to do a little graphing. We love function mode. We're there a lot of the time. Sometimes students never really have the opportunity to leave function mode on their calculator. So as Margaret talked about earlier, we're loving some math here. We're going to do some more loving on our 84 calculators, whether it be the CE version or the good old Silver edition. So let me go ahead and show you a graph database. So this is one of the files that I transferred earlier. Over here, I'm going to recall a graph database, draw menu, recall graph database, and again, I'm working on the instructional software SmartView CE for the 84 plus family. I'll be displaying this on my classroom, my board up front. If it's interactive whiteboard, students would be pressing buttons for me, or we can use a mouse, pass it around. Recall a graph database. Let's see what it did. It changed the mode from function mode to polar. It put some equations into Y1. It did not turn off a plot, so I'm going to move up and turn off that plot. Now notice that the two expressions that I have in here, actually the two equations, R1 and R2, they are not active at this time. It just put them in there. So if I press graph, nothing happened. Oh, I have a background in there. Noticed in the chat window somebody was saying earlier, what are differences between the Silver Edition and the CE, or a Silver Edition and the C? And one of the comments in the chat was you can put background images on the color version. So in order to take off that background, I'm going to go into the format and just move up to background, and let's turn that background off. Wanted to have a nice cheerful heart there showing for us. Now I press graph. Functions are not active. The art equations are not turned on, so I can turn them on one at a time. Press enter. Press graph. The graph database stores the expression that needs to go in there. It stored information about what window to graph it in. I'm graphing in polar mode. So theta is moving from 0 to 2 pi, and there's the step for theta, and then my picture frame, my graphing window, it's the pretty much the decimal, the zoom 4 window. Origin in the center of the screen. And let's see what the other one looked like. So I go down here, move over, turn it on. I don't want to graph both of them at the same time, so I'm going to move up, press enter when it's on the equal sign, press graph. And so we have another example of graphing in polar mode. All right, and those equations are stored in the graph database 7 and graph database 8. It also has information about the windows and let's see what else, the mode. So TI SmartView CE is for the whole 84 Plus family. So let me switch it to the 84 Plus Silver Edition. Okay, does that look like Silver Edition to me? Yes, it does. Let me clear my home screen. What if I wanted to do the polar graphing on that? I have to be sure that my graph databases that I want are in the emulator contents. So I click on that. I'm going to go back over here on my screen in my folder where I had some files to transfer. I had graph database 7 and graph database 8. Let me find those, grab them again. Graph database 7, graph database 8. Somebody might say, wait, you already did that for the color calculator. Oh, they don't share information. Within the emulator software, the contents of the 84 Plus Silver Edition, those are separate from the contents of the C and also the CE. All right, so I'm going to let that transfer over there. Remember, this is my software for my instruction in my classroom. It's SmartView CE for the 84 Plus family. In a minute, we'll go back and talk about using the connectivity software. What are students doing on their calculators? How can I get some files to them? All right. So while it's still transferring those files, let me go back here. I'm going to recall graph database. So I go in the draw menu. I'm going to recall, that's choice 4. And it was recall graph database 7 for my polar graphs. So if I remember correctly, they are not turned on, they're not active. So there we go, I have to turn it on. Let's see how it looks. I might want to change a window, I might want to change a T-step in that window to make it more compatible with the Silver Edition. But let's just have a go at it. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's kind of thick and blobby, and it went kind of fast. All right, so how can I change those things? Move over to the left, press Enter until it's the style that I want. I don't know why I had them all on that thick line. I sure didn't intend to. And let's press Graph again, see what happens. Okay, that was kind of fast. Okay, if you want to slow it down, you'll change your T-step, get more points plotted. Maybe change that to 2/10 instead of 2/100. Remember, I read it in the chat, our CE and the 84C have more pixels on the screen. Back on our black and white version, we don't have as many pixels to graph, so let's see. Not too bad. So there was a quick and easy there of a polar graph. It's the same one that we looked at earlier. Okay, I want to recall the other graph database. Graph database 8. Did I put it on this calculator? And when I say this calculator, I mean the black and white version of it, 84 Plus Silver Edition, because we work in classrooms quite often mixed models of calculators. Okay, we want to be able to display. Okay, not too bad. Ta-da! Did I hear lots of oohs and oh, yay! All right, so there's my 84 Plus Silver Edition reminder. To put something on that calculator, the calculator contents, you click on the magnifying glass, slide the file over from wherever you have it, put it on there. Okay. I did have a couple programs on the I didn't put them on the 84 Plus. I put them on the CE. Okay, so let's just, there, that's what that looked like. The one that we just saw on the, nope, that was the polar version, polar mode. Let's recall graph database 8. There are some there are some webinars on how to recall, how to make graph databases. So it's easy to do. And it's nice to get the graph that you want. And when you go into the draw menu and store, instead of recall, you say store. And you assign it a number between 0 and 9. So let's recall graph database 8. Let's see what it does. There we go. There we have the nice color version. So that's just a quick look at graph databases on the 84 Plus Silver Edition and on the 84 Plus on the 84 CE. So let's go back to the communication software. Communication software was called TI Connect. I have 2 calculators connected. I actually have 3, but one of them shut off. Okay. I'm going to get out of Calculator Explorer workspace. That's where it's showing me the contents of one calculator. And I'm going to go to Screen Capture. Margaret gave us a quick screen capture of this. This is one we had earlier. Let me see what the other ones have going on them. Okay, so students come up, plug in, share their work. Okay, oh, somebody was maybe doing that half heart, getting the other part of it, and doing some transformations with that. Okay, here's another screen capture. That one's not particularly interesting. I don't actually really, oh yeah, I did. Let me do it again. It was the good old black and white calculator, still functional, still working, and kids, my students can still do parametric and polar graphing. All right, and then here's the other one, the cardio that we saw. So as you're doing the activities with your students, whether it's an 84 Plus Silver Edition or an 84C or an 84 CE, they can come up and plug in to your computer. I have a USB hub connected to mine. It's got 5 slots on it, one for my mouse, and then 4 calculators can plug in. So what did you do? What transformation did you do? Why? Oh, that's great. Let's challenge the class to figure that one out or do something else. So TI Connect CE, if you haven't updated lately, it's a free update. Okay, you want to have the CE, that's for the whole family of 84s. I'm going to minimize that and go back to my SmartView software. I wanted to do one more thing here. On my 84 Plus model, I think I had some data in Stat 1. And I think these might be points that Margaret was using in her transformation. The program doesn't transfer, but the lists do. So I saved the lists from the color calculator, and I can put the list information onto the black and white. Okay, and so let's see if we turned it on, and let me do a graph, see if I can get anything. Yes, I've got some stuff going on there. It's kind of blobby, so I would change what I needed to change. Oh, let me turn that off, actually. I don't really need any functions going, so we had our parametric graphs going, and there is just plot 1. So that's the heart, the L1, L2, for the original heart that Margaret did all those transformations with. If it's too blobby, that just means the mark is too large for the points and the window that it's showing in. Okay, but we don't want to abandon the opportunity for using the 84 Plus Silver Edition along with our SmartView software. Okay, if I want to show some features of graphs or highlight some transformations and some other explorations, even if we all have the 84 Plus Silver Edition, we love it, it does great things, but sometimes the opportunity to use the SmartView software and the color feature can help me talk about it and can help students talk about characteristics that they want to show each other. So I believe that's covering all that I'm going to be doing tonight. And thank you for your attention. We'll check and see if we have questions. The documents that you have talk about the information that we were sharing tonight, the files. 2 PDFs, and then some calculator files for your 84. Okay, I like that idea. I'm reading that one of the participants said, I had no idea the 84 models did so much. They are powerful, they're huge, and when we connect them up with the software, TI Connect, and have students share their work, they can say, oh, I can do that too.
And Ruth, you might want to mention, one of the participants asked what suggestions you have when sharing calculators among teachers and students. I typed a response, but I didn't know if you wanted to add something. Talked about linking the calculators so that you can get files from unit to unit and that type of thing.
Right. So some things, if you're sharing calculators, a class set goes from one teacher to another or from one class to another. Be sure students are skilled at clearing out lists, clearing out data, maybe resetting the defaults. Be sure they're skilled at that. Be sure they're also skilled at putting things back on. Linking, if you can use TI Connect to put some files on, or link unit to unit with the short cable. That way, be able to clear off what you don't want on there and be able to share what you want. If they're mixed models, you have some color and you have some Silver Edition, then you want to be sure, if you're going to share data, have it the lowest common denominator, which means don't include window settings that don't work on all of them, don't include color settings. So they all have L1 and L2, so share some information in L1 and L2. All right, and thanks to other people who have shared some information in the comments. If you haven't used TI Connect ever or lately, it is so nice and easy to share information. Just slide it over.
And Mike did put the links to that in the chat window as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. We have a few minutes left. I just wanted to share a couple of things. Speaking of the links, in case you didn't catch those, feel free to visit our website, education.ti.com. And I just went under products and then computer software. And whenever I did that, there's a whole bunch of, there's a list of links for computer software. So for instance, some of the software we used tonight was the TI Connect CE software for the TI-84 Plus family, and also the TI SmartView CE emulator software for the TI-84 Plus family. There's a few other ones there too as well. So please feel free to visit our website and check out those links to learn a little bit more.
So I see that somebody asked, oh, I didn't do a good job of copying that. Somebody asked, can we use just 84s with these programs? Actually, that's a great question, and the answer would be no, because the programs that we use tonight will not link with 84 Plus Silver Edition, so that alerts us to, we need to modify those programs so that they can. So maybe, Mike, we can update or add to our documents that will be shared.
Sure. What we can do, the link that I'm going to give out tonight here in a minute or two will be the documents that you guys had prepared. And then in a couple of days, everyone's going to receive a follow-up email tonight, and that will have links for the recording and link for the documents. And before we send out that follow-up link in that email in a couple of days, maybe we can get that updated and get that ready to go.
Sure, we'll do that.
Great. Thanks so much. We're really excited that in the coming weeks, a bunch of us are going to be meeting up in Baltimore at the T-Cubed International Conference. It's really a great way to learn more about some technology that's available to you, as well as reconnect with other fellow educators and extend your content as well. So please feel free to visit our website to learn more about the T-Cubed International Conference. Also, I want to mention that we have each year leading up to the conference a book study. And this year, many of us are reading, it's a pretty short read called Save Our Science, How to Inspire a New Generation of Scientists. I just started reading this the other day, but Kim Thomas, who's on tonight, is going to be helping us moderate the Slow Chat book study where each week we cover a different section of the book. And so we're going to started yesterday, this week, and we're going to go through the end of February 25th. So you still have a good chance if you want to participate in the FlowChat book study. I'm going to post a link for that in the chat window. So if you want to learn more about our FlowChat book study, please feel free to click on that link in the chat window to learn more. To receive a certificate of attendance tonight, go ahead and click the link in the window. The chat window also is a link for the documents. And as Ruth and Margaret mentioned, they may be making some updates to that documents link. So feel free to download it tonight, but just know that in the coming days you're going to get a follow-up email, and in that follow-up email may be an updated documents link. If you're watching this on demand, go ahead and copy that link into your favorite browser to receive your certificate. Thanks so much, Ruth and Margaret, for everything you prepared and shared tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks, everyone, for joining us. We hope to see you back online real soon. Have a great night.